And he cried, there goes my life. There goes my future, my everything. I love you, baby, goodbye.
When Janet Levy's daughter, Katie, left for college in Atlanta, she had no idea empty nest syndrome would hit so hard.
The fact is that a child that you have raised since they're a baby is, and I'm going to cry, who's lived with you every day of their life is just not going to live with you anymore. And you're not going to see them every day.
Did you feel that after being a stay-at-home mom for so many years that you had lost something more, lost your self-identity?
Definitely. The fear is that, what am I supposed to do now? Who am I?
Empty nest syndrome is not a psychiatric disorder. It's not a depression per se. It is a constellation of symptoms like sadness, grief, sense of loss that can happen at a time of transition, particularly when kids leave the home after having been there for many, many years.
Psychiatrist Catherine Berndorf, founding director of the Payne Whitney Women's Mental Health Program at New York Presbyterian Hospital, says up to 75% of parents suffer some form of empty nest syndrome.
Sometimes it hits women harder because, one, it might be happening at a time in their life when other changes are happening. Let's say when it's the time when kids go off to college. It may also be the time of hormonal change, perimenopause or menopause.
That's a riot, Katie.
While technology, phone calls, texts, emails, and Skype
Hi, Mom. Hello, sweetheart.
have an amazing way of shrinking the 881 miles separating Janet and Katie.
My finger's totally infected.
Oh, that's awful.
It has taken Janet months to adjust.
So how did you get through? What did you do?
Cried a lot. It just took some time. When something is missing, it's missing. But, you relearn life.
In fact, there are dozens of websites and books on the market to help parents relearn life after a child moves out. But there are also a growing number of studies showing that empty nests can be filled and fulfilling in new ways.
That's, I think, the big news, that it's actually a time where they can take a deep breath and exhale, and they can enjoy their life. They can re-establish their hobbies. They may be able to put more into their career or their relationships or their friendships.
You need to withdraw the rest of my applications, otherwise you could screw up some things with ED.
Okay.
So can you please do that?
Mm-hmm.
In anticipation of next fall, when son Nick leaves for college and her nest will be completely empty, Janet has been doing more volunteer work. She and Gary are planning a retirement retreat in Florida, and
Thank God for Cosmo and Lola.
Yay!
Because I don't know what she would do without them.
Okay.
oh yes, the two new additions to the family.
You got a little love for me?
They're your babies now.
They are my babies. You come home and there's these two adorable, cute little things waiting for you. It's just not sad to come home to an empty house then. It's not empty. And I think what I really envision myself doing next year is really spending some time with just myself and taking a couple of courses. I love literature, I love film, and maybe I'll spend some time writing myself. Just make time to do it. And we'll see what happens.
In the end, Janet's empty nest is not simply about losing her children, but regaining a piece of herself.
Today, most young adults move out their parents' house to pursue education or employment opportunities, or simply to live independently. Research has shown that majority of adults move out between the ages of 18 and 25. The reason for that is to express a sense of independence. Women leave their parental home earlier than men, largely because they tend to marry at younger ages. Men with higher education leave sooner than their less educated counterparts. Growing up in a large family promotes being independent sooner rather than later. Young adults living in extant families also leave earlier. Two main theoretical perspectives regarding the effects of the departure of children on parents are the role, role-less perspective, and the role-strain perspective. The role-less hypothesis predicts that when the role from which parents, particularly mothers, have derived their sense of accomplishment is over, a decrease in their well-being should be observed. And the role-strain relief perspective suggests that the emptiness stage should lead to improvement in parallel well-being because the presence of children at home increases exposure to stressors such as daily demands, time constraints, and work-family conflicts. Many studies were based on cross-sectional data. A number of researchers explored how adults differed in their levels of well-being according to the different stages of family life. Researchers examining the impact of postparental transition have also used retrospective ratings of well-being in lasting marriages. These studies are based on respondents' recollections that they are likely to contain inaccuracy. Given the limitations associated with cross-sectional and retrospective data, a number of scholars choose postparental transition. Given that both mothers and fathers faced the postparental transition, most scholars studied the impact of launching of children into adulthood on both parents. Studies have consistently revealed a U-shaped pattern of marital quality over the family life course, with the lowest ratings in the mid-marriage child-rearing stages and highest ratings in the earliest and latest stages, including the empty nest syndrome. Both fathers and mothers showed a substantial increase in their marital quality and satisfaction. This generally prescribes higher levels of engagement with their children to mothers. The departure on the last child also has a positive impact on the level of equity between partners. This means that parents, particularly mothers, see their spouse as more accommodating, less insistent on their own, and less focused on their own needs. Young adults whose parents separated were evenly divided on whether or not they thought it would have been better for them if their parents had separated when they were children.
The researchers studied the effects children leaving home has on parents' psychological well-being, marital status, and the potential development of empty nest syndrome. The researchers also studied the relationships that the children had with their parents after they moved out and found that they needed to negotiate new sets of relationship rules with their adult children, particularly daughters. The father would then become less authoritarian and the child more receptive to the father's suggestions and influence. There are a few psychological effects empty nest syndrome has on parents. For mothers more specifically, we saw an increase in loneliness. For both parents, a mix of sadness and relief. Some indicated that a child leaving home was more stressful than job loss. There is also a higher chance of alcohol abuse, and some parents feel the need to build a new identity around not being dependent on a child.
The non-traditional dynamics of a family, physiological and social changes during midlife and older adult phases, and cultural context as they relate to post-parenthood continue to be unexplored. Bouchard's research presents the effects of nest leaving as relatively positive, though highly varied. Indeed, parental outcomes are a highly individualized combination of socio-cultural, biological, and psychological factors. Further research need pay close attention to variables like culture, family makeup, and age-related stressors in order to broaden the perspective on the empty nest stage and emeritus parents. Research on the post-parental stage can provide valuable insight into the family life cycle as a whole, insight that will prove beneficial as the population ages and diversifies. So, what if there is no father figure to speak of in a family dynamic? Or perhaps a stepmother, not a biological mother, in the household of the returning child? What is the effect of child departure then? Perhaps a mother encounters a chronic disease shortly after her child leaves home, or a father experiences the death of his own father during the post-parental transition phase. How did these events interact with empty nesting, and what results does that interaction produce? Both the concept of post-parenthood and the ramifications of children leaving the home are complicated by a phenomenon that has come to intensify in recent years, the phenomenon of boomerang kids. Boomerang kids can be defined as individuals who return to their parents' home for 4 months or longer after their initial departure. It seems that most adults are accepting of their returning children. They remain accommodating and empathetic as their offspring face various challenges in young adulthood, including fiscal, marital, and employment issues. Relationships between parents and their return to nesters tend to be positive, despite past conflicts and an increased potential for conflict due to increased contact between parent and child. Friction often arises mostly over child-parent differences in daily routine and social roles. Despite largely positive relations between parents and boomerang children, the return of previously departed kids decreases the quality of the marital relationship of the parents. There is a linkage to less sexual contact and moodiness, particularly for fathers of returning children.